Say one, okay. Okay, call this meeting to town board to order. John, you want to lead us in that?
Like allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to our town board meeting. First item of business will approve the minutes of the regular meeting on September 8th and the special meeting on the 27th. Somebody want to make a motion? Motion by Richard. Second by John. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Town clerk's report.
Monthly report for September. Marriage licenses, $140. Taxes and photocopies, $7. Certified copies and genealogy, $340. Landfills and punch cards, $21,072. Transient permits, $125. IPP permits, $5,400, bringing a total of $5,525. Dog licensing, $214. Building permits, $440.25. Septic permits, $25, bringing total local shares remitted of $27,763.25.
Okay, supervisors report. Total monies on hand for the month of September, $2,674,634.38. Assessor.
Assessor report for October. Preparations of the 2022 rolls continue. During the next few months, we plan on taking photos of newly constructed and otherwise modified properties that have been completed. Over the summer, your assessor has taken 3 continuing education courses and required to maintain state certification. These courses are comprised of the following: appraiser's guide, expert witness assignments, appraisal review of residential properties, and appraising small residential income properties. Due to ongoing COVID-19 mess, in-person classes have been limited. However, thankfully, online courses have been available for those needing to update their CE credits. These courses are also credited for your assessor's New York State appraisal license. Appraiser has already paid for these courses, thus saving the town money for the required CE credits for this cycle. Additionally, due to said COVID conditions, plus the CE courses taken over the summer, your assessor did not attend New York State Assessors Association annual fall conference in Niagara Falls this year. This too will save the town some expenses on the online courses that have been taking care of the annual CE requirements of the state. The town would not have been reimbursed for the state. It is hopeful that in-person CE classes at the annual New York State Assessors Association conference scheduled for late Georgia next year will be back to normal then by then, especially Greg Clemmer.
Hey, Justice.
Just report for September. Judge Fisk heard 70 cases, collected fines of $5,670, fees of $140, and surcharges of $2,504. Judge Kavanaugh heard 64 cases, collected fines of $3,825, fees of $2, and surcharges of $1,702. Total cases in September were 134. Total dollars received in September, $13,843. Town share in July, $4,210. The town's share of August, $5,920.
Okay, dog control officer.
Dog control, I'm gonna abbreviate it. We had 2 calls on barking dogs. He had 1 call about abandonment dogs on River Street, and he had 1 call on loose dogs on Stacy Street.
Okay. Planning.
There were 1 septic and 11 land use development permits issued in the month of September, including 1 for the Lake George Barber Shop at 3728 Main Street, and another for Touch of the South Barbecue Takeout at 3916 Main Street. Zoning Board does not have a meeting this month, and the Planning Board reviewed and approved a site plan review application by North Country Ministry to operate the Furniture Barn at 3922 Main Street. Public hearing was held for the site plan review application for the proposed development of a Dollar General at 3760 Main Street. Public hearing remains open, at least until their meeting at November 2nd.
Enforcement. Jim.
Provided Judge Kavanaugh with fine structure for the dog complaints. Sent a letter to the owner of 3861 Main Street requesting that they wash the windows and remove the obscene artwork and language drawn in the dirt. Sent a warning notice to 41 Hillcrest Drive for having a load of crushed stone dumped in the middle of the roadway. Stone was removed by the Warrensburg Highway Department at my request the same day. Sent the Assistant Warren County DA requested information on 247 River Street regarding short-term rental property of the property. They have issued the owner a cease and desist order based on my investigation of the property. Owner was in court and claimed no notification from this office. I provided the court with emails to and from this office to the owner along with photos, dates, and license plates at that address. Sent a notice to 3826 Main Street for grass over height. Called Wells Fargo at 23 King Street, advised them if they did not take care of the grass there, we would mow it. They did not, and we have started mowing that property along with the rest of them. Checked on a past septic permit requested by a neighbor from our property. Inspected a septic at 172 Jenny Jill Drive. It's installed as designed. Photos were taken and placed in the property file. Received correspondence from the APA regarding cribbing along Spoon River at parcel 169 2-1-14 at that location. The APA has no issue with this being done. A letter was placed in the property file. We've checked 247 River Street various times to assure compliance with the county's order. Discussed and forwarded information requested by the APA on the expansion of the hamlet information was also forwarded to Supervisor Garrity. Notified the fire company of all burn permits that were issued in the month of September. Contacted Brian Smead, the health officer, regarding complaint at 13 Sweet Road. Complaining party stated that there were numerous dogs in the house and the house was littered with their waste. Dr. Smead was provided with the complaining party's phone number. Received and supplied information to several callers on zoning and code issues. Some were referred to the APA as they were outside of the hamlet. Received a letter from the APA regarding the building of garage at parcel 137.2-7-2. The APA has no issue with the project. The letter was placed in the property file. Replied to the APA regarding the length of the town sewer of Main Street, verified my answers with the sewer department and provided the information to the APA. Warning notice was sent to the owner of 28 Florida Drive regarding a fence installed with no permit and finished side not facing the adjoining property. The owner will correct the issue, and he corrected that today.
Okay. We're going to dispense with reading the committee reports, and anybody who would like to have a copy of committee reports, see us after the meeting, we'll get you copies. Communications, received a letter from Lois Secor thanking the town for the summer band concerts. The municipal shelter inspection received from Countryside Boarding and Grooming. Report was found satisfactory. That's where we take our dogs to be boarded. Letter received from Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation about the Warrensburg Recreation Field site and a post-completion inspection. We're talking to Parks about that right now. Letter from John Gable for the amazing job our employees did cleaning up after World's largest garage sale. And I got an email report from the State Controller's Office that Warrensburg has no physical stress again for this makes about 6 or 7 years in a row. We've been in good financial shape. Unfinished business, rebid the sludge removal project from the lagoons. We did not accept the bid for the sludge removal. We're going to do it in the springtime. We've been talking with companies, and we think we'll get a better price in the springtime. And DEC is okay with us waiting to spring. I went out to a site location for a new well with Tracy Benoit and the town engineers. We'll be reaching out to potential landowner in the near future to see if we can locate a well. It's the site will be up the golf course road. We have a good aquifer up there, and we hope to be able to work with the landowner and put a new production well up there. Chase and Companies has moved ahead with the phase 2 environmental study on the 11 King Street property. They'll be in there doing some test holes to see if there's any contamination in the soil. And does anybody else have any further comments on the American Recovery Act monies? I'd really like to see us use that money to work on the water projects and the sewer projects. We have some hefty water and sewer projects, and I know that is that's a valid expense, and we've been filing our reports on time. So we have $200,000 that would go a long way to help us get that new well looked at. So if anybody has any other changes, let me know. But those are the ones that we're gonna work on.
Are we allowed to ask a question about it?
Go ahead.
My only question is, the project for the well,
Yeah.
that you're looking to put it towards, what's the total cost for that?
Don't know yet until we get a test well drilled and figure out what's gonna go on with it. It's probably be around 450,000,
So the recovery monies would pay for about half of that.
about half of it.
Thank you.
Okay, the, any action for an economic development, you want to talk about that now?
So the Economic Development Committee has finished a survey that's going out with the town quarterly newsletter, and we hope that there'll be a big response from the community because it's information that'll help us decide how we go forward. We've also taken a look at that recovery money that Kevin just mentioned, and we've identified 5 different areas that are allowed to spend money on, and in particular, a nonprofit, Small Tales, is in a situation where they may need to move, they may need to do some reconstruction of a new facility, and I would ask the board to consider not spending every dime on just water and sewer, but some of these other items that I'll share with Kevin are important as well. And it's always important to spread the wealth, especially when you have issues in the community that need attention, like Small Tales.
We'll look into it. I know Danny's been monitoring that, so we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
And we were gonna take action tonight on some lots up Alden Avenue. I understand that the gentleman said he'll wait till springtime to take any action on selling some of that watershed property. On our new business, we will start flushing fire hydrants next week. Everybody should be aware of that. We will put signs out in the areas where we're gonna flush. And we also will put ads in the paper, but it's our annual flushing of the fire hydrants. It starts next week.
Question just on there, they're gonna give, is there tentative setup of when where they're gonna do it? North end of town, south east?
They always put out
Because a lot of
signs,
people-
Tony.
A lot of people are not home during, they don't know their hydrants are flushed.
They
A lot of
always,
People like to clear
excuse me.
their fire up there.
we always put out the signs a day ahead of time to let them know that flushing will start.
Okay.
So they have a certain pattern. I don't know it, and I don't know where Tracy is. But we do notify. We put signs out and we notify people. So I'd like to set next Wednesday night at 4:30 PM for a public hearing on the preliminary budget. There's no tax increase. Is that all right with the board? 4:30? So Pam, 4:30 next Wednesday. And there will be no tax increase right now. Okay, the next item of business, we need to discuss the local law establishing a moratorium on new commercial retail development in the Main Street area of the Warrensburg Historic District. So I'm gonna ask Bob or somebody to let the public know what we're talking about here, or should we read the moratorium, or how should it go?
What is the board's preference? If you want, I can go through what it says,
Sure.
or we can have, clerk read it word for word.
You wanna read it?
I'll
Go
go
ahead.
ahead too. It's a local law establishing a moratorium on new commercial retail development in the Main Street area of Warrensburg Historic District. Okay, is this any better? Can you hear? Is that okay? Okay, the title. It's a local law establishing a moratorium on new commercial retail development in Main Street area of Warrensburg Historic District. And it has 8 sections. The first is a title and authority. It just mentions the name and the authority for adopting it. Number 2 is the purpose. I'll read that word for word because I think that's an important part for the public to know.
Speak up.
I'm talking pretty loud. Okay, Mike's right here. Okay, can you hear me? Any better? Seems very loud, Ryan. My daughter says use my indoor voice more. But I will shout. The purpose, the hamlet of Warrensburg Historic District was entered in the National Register of Historic Places in 2001. The Main Street area of the Historic District provides a significant historic and architectural art character, which is essential to the continued development of the town's economy. Incompatible development within this area could compromise the value of this resource and inhibit more appropriate growth. The purpose of the moratorium is to allow the town of Warrensburg boards the opportunity to review and update the town code and comprehensive plan as appropriate for the current times, including but not limited to analysis of where new retail store commercial growth is most appropriate, possible extension of the Main Street Historic District. These efforts are undertaken to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of the town. Number 3 has definitions. For the purpose of local law, the Main Street Corridor Historic District means both sides of Main Street Route 9, extending north from the southern boundary of the Plank Road Bridge at the municipal boundary of the town of Warrensburg and the town of Lake George to the intersection with 3rd Avenue as its northern border. This area encompasses the contiguous resources located along Main Street, which are listed in the hamlet of Warrensburg Historic District on the National Register of Historic Places registration form, as well as other properties that may be appropriate for expansion of the historic district. New retail store development, this is the definition, means any construction or other activity for the purpose of establishing a new retail store commercial use. It shall not include maintenance, improvement, renovation, expansion, or demolition of existing structures. Retail store commercial use means selling goods and merchandise to the public for personal and household use. Number 4, moratorium. The town board hereby imposes a moratorium on undertaking any new retail store commercial development on any property within the Main Street Corridor Historic District for a period beginning on the effective date of this local law and continuing until, and then there's an area for the town board after the public hearing to insert a time for the ending of the moratorium. What is in there right now is a brackets for their consideration based on their input to us so far is last non-weekend, non-holiday day of the month, 12 months from the date of the local law. And then it continues. And further provides that no application under the town zoning code or subdivision regulations involving any new retail store commercial development on property within the Main Street Corridor Historic District will be accepted, reviewed, or approved during that period. This prohibition includes any development for which applications are currently pending unless all necessary approvals have been obtained and actual physical project construction has been substantially commenced as of, and again, there's a blank for the town board after this public hearing to insert a date for commencement, but as of whatever date, 2021. Paragraph 5 is variances. The town board shall have the power, after a public hearing, to vary or modify the application of any provision of this local law upon its determination that strict application of this local law would impose practical difficulties or extraordinary hardships upon an applicant, and that the variance granted would not adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of the town, or significantly conflict with the general purposes and intent of this local law. Any request for a variance shall be in writing and filed with the town clerk. The town board shall conduct a public hearing on the application on not less than 5 days public notice. It shall make its decision within 30 days after the close of the public hearing. Number 6, extensions. This moratorium may be extended for such additional periods as the town board may determine to be necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the town and accomplish the stated purposes and intent of this local law. Number 7, termination. This moratorium may be terminated earlier than its expiration date upon enactment of additional local legislation governing development within the Main Street Corridor Historic District or at the discretion of the town board. The last section, number 8, is effective date. This local law shall take effect upon the filing with the office of the New York State Secretary of State or as otherwise provided by the law.
Okay. So tonight is technically not a public hearing, but I will take public comment on this because I believe a lot of people came tonight under the assumption this was a public hearing. It's not a public hearing on the moratorium. It's, we have to vote whether we want to move ahead with this moratorium. But if people would like to address us on the moratorium tonight, I will allow you to get up to the mic and please state your name for the record and give us your views on the moratorium. So anybody wish to address the board on the moratorium, there will be another public hearing in the future. Does anybody wish to address us tonight?
I'm Sharon Tynick. I'm the owner of Jumpin' Java Consignment right down here on Main Street. And having just read through that, I think it's pretty good. The one thing that concerns me is the variances, because it sounds very similar to a lot of the things we're running up against with the board actions that aren't taking into account the public input, or at least that's the feeling we're all getting from coming to the meetings. Is there a way to build in a, even putting it to a town vote or giving some weight to town input versus just a variance provided by the boards? Is that something that
It's a
can be
legal
done?
question, Bob.
Because it's a pretty big
It isn't the
issue.
type of thing that can be put to a public vote.
Yeah, because this is we're all concerned about the town and what it looks like and stuff. And if everybody says, hey, go forward with this or that, I'm all for that. But I would like to know that we actually had a weighted say in the issue. So that would be my recommendation, some type of, strategic, documented public input was sought and analyzed in some way.
Variances aren't granted based on public votes. The votes are, the variance is granted on specific parameters that are set, and the board has to follow those parameters. It's not a public vote.
Right, but the board may want substantial input from the public
That's
to
what
be able to say this
they
is what
have
the
public
public
hearings, and that's
said.
the chance for the public to come and give its input.
And then they can say, the public said this, and this is why we really feel we have to go the other way. But at least the public then felt like they got some input and got it on paper, and if there's darn good reasons for it to go otherwise.
The reason for that in there, this puts it in front of the town board. We're all aware that our planning board and zoning boards are volunteers, so hot topic comes along, that's a lot of weight to put on them. So at least this way, it puts that
On this board.
process on this board, and you get to vote on these people.
Gotcha.
At least you
Okay, that's my input, thanks.
Anybody else wish to address the board tonight?
My name is Jim Hull. I've lived in Orangeburg my whole life. What's going on here reminds me of what went on in the 1980s and early 90s. I owned 139 Main Street. I walk the walk so I can talk the talk. I've owned an old building on Main Street, right across from the two banks up there. Had I not been able to do all the things I did in that building, it would have buried me. Back then, there were people in here in the audience that wanted to take all the parking off Main Street, and that was why I came here as a business owner. And a minority of people convinced the supervisor at that time to take all the parking off Main Street. They didn't care about the business people. They didn't care about the other people. What you're asking to do here is you got Faith Buck up here, who's a little old lady who owns the property, who a realtor told me that it's $160,000 to bring that house up to where you can get a bank loan on it, and then another $300,000 to buy it. I'm sure she doesn't have $160,000 to fix it. You've got Beth down here, Wassel at the pillars. I know she doesn't have money enough to rehab the pillars. So if you tell people that they care, or you got Pete Haggerty back here, who owns that house, who is said at some point he'd like to sell it and have maybe somebody tear it down and put a retail outlet there. If that's what we're gonna do with these people, I'd like to know what you think these people are gonna do with these properties. If I owned 139 Main Street still, that's what I wanna know. What are these people supposed to do with these properties? Sit on them until the second coming of Christ? If they can't sell them, and somebody can't tear them down, and they don't have the money to fix them, then what? What do they do then? There's nobody who sits up here, owns any property in any of the historic districts. Nobody. John Alexander does on Main Street. Okay, you do. You live in it?
My dog.
Okay,
I own it.
but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a deal with you. And there's nobody up here sitting in the audience that I've been to in these meetings that cheer this moratorium in the historic district that live in it either. But I'll tell you what I'll do, because I had skin in this game. I'll go to Facebook and I'll go to Beth down here and I'll make a deal with them. And anybody that takes a deal, raise your hand. You buy this property or that property, $10,000 down. 3% mortgage for 5 years and balloon it off at the end of 5 years, and you can own the Emerson house up here, or you could own the pillars. Anybody want that deal? Put your hand up. Anybody back here got their hand up? What, you know why they don't? Because they can't afford to do it. And that's the bottom line here. You're tying these people's hands that own these properties, and you're gonna make them stick with them until they either fall down or somebody comes along that's got more money than they know what to do with and fix it. I just don't think it's right.
Kathy Ferrello, Lawrenceburg. I feel it's kind of unfair that you're going to put these on the people now. Like when all my property is in north of here, and I've had to go through the APA I've had 23 permits from the APA, but I knew from the beginning what I was allowed to do and not allowed. Now you want to put a moratorium on homes and people that have already owned them. That's not fair. That you're telling them now, to me, it's like what's happening all over the place. You're taking control, and people are losing control of their homes and their livelihoods. And it's not really the thing to do. If you had this from the beginning and you said, okay, when you buy this house, this is what you can do with it, that's different. But now you're gonna throw something on their lap and say, I'm sorry, you're stuck with it. It doesn't seem like it's happening at the right time. And it's like you're stifling a lot of the businesses and the people that want to come in here. I mean, we've worked for a long time trying to be bringing businesses in here. And now you're saying, well, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do the other thing. I mean, you can't surprise people with it after they bought the property. It's something that you have to do from the beginning. Otherwise, they just say, well, I don't want it, and move on. So I think it's a poor idea.
My name is Tony Fortino. I don't know whether you classify me as a native. I've always heard the definition of native is you're either born here or die here. So I guess I'm going to die here. I've been here since 1984. I see what's going on. I deal with facts. My previous job is facts. The facts are the homeowner's rights are being taken away bit by bit by bit. The gentleman down that is talking about the D&G, he purchased the property for a reason. Something came up better. Okay, they talk about traffic. Traffic, the state must not be concerned about it. The zoning board must not be affected by it because they approved it. What's happening is you put a moratorium on something, and I'm neither in favor nor not in favor of it, okay? But you got to look at the facts, like Mr. Hall said. The building up on a corner below Tops is falling apart. The Pillars is in dismay. These people cannot afford to rehab it. What are you gonna do? Knock them down, put a parking lot in, put meters in that the town's gotta turn around and plow? They don't have enough time for themselves now. You've got on Hudson Street, you go up Hudson Street, there's buildings that are in the district that are falling into disrepair. The homeowner is bound like this. And it's up to you people to unbreak this. It's also, if it goes down there, it's in the way of traffic where you're gonna get business. It also means more commercial sales tax and revenue real estate. So if you're watching your taxes, everybody is in probably like I am, retired. And you watch your taxes, will stay level or go down, not keep going up because certain individuals in the town feel that they've been slighted. And the rest of the people have got to pay for it. Thank you.
Jennifer Natham. So I'm going to take a quote from my grandmother who grew up and lived in this town. And she said, there's no place like Warrensburg. If she was still alive, she would be beside herself. I'm third generation of the store. Listen, I'm the youngest one here. Let's call it the way it is. I am the youngest one here. For me to run a business, to have businesses, to watch my father buy buildings, to refurbish buildings here, I would never, right now, I would turn my kids away to have the fourth generation at the store if you guys are going to control our business. To me, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I'm all about keeping the history, fixing buildings, but it is hard to make a living now. Let's call it the way it is. The world has changed. There's no more little country stores, country towns. I mean, we're all trying to survive. The world has changed. So what you're saying is if I'm in a historical building, if my store is in the historical area, then if my son or daughter wants to take over the store to be the fourth generation of Jacobson, Tony, Billy Meester of the North, and we know that it's going to be a different world in 10 years, they can't do anything. They can't tear it down. They can't sell it. They can't put anything in there. I mean, why would you bother even being part of this now? I just find it absolutely crazy. I'm going to read this that my father came up with. Queensbury and Glens Falls are considered number one in the areas. We believe that Warrensburg is number 2 town in Warren County. The reason is we have 2 banks, 2 drugstores, 2 hardware stores, 2 car dealerships, 2 supermarkets, 2 auto parts stores, 2 liquor stores, 2 pizza shops, 1 chiropractor, 2 meat stores, 1 garden center, 2 convenience stores, eye doctors, 2 dentists, car wash, dry cleaners, laundromats, hairdressers, barber shops, car repair shops, U-Haul dealerships, flower shops, a great medical center, oil businesses. I can go on and on about what this town has, but who's going to want to come here and bring more business here if you're going to stop it? And that's what you guys are trying to do, is stop it. And it's just, to me, I can't wrap my head around it. I just can't wrap my head around this. And I think it's crazy. I just think it's crazy.
Let me finish. I don't know if you people realize how this happened. I'm hoping you do if you live in this town. The Northway brought this business here. Before the Northway, we had the Canadian traffic. Potter's Diner was open 24 hours a day. Don Stone had a truck stop 24 hours a day. We had cabins, we had motels. The Northway came, those Route 9 did not become a pass-by for people from Montreal to New York. All the motels shut down. They couldn't make a living here anymore. That's why the Pillars didn't have their cabins. No, you people don't realize this. I lived here and seen this. We were very fortunate. We got second home buyers that moved up here. They created Warrensburg. They didn't want to ride to Glens Falls to get these products. They want to come to Warrensburg because we have a nice town. We have friendly employees. I lived here. This is my town, just like it's your town. I promote Warrensburg. Everybody calls we're second-class citizens up here. We're first-class citizens. We're the best in Warren County other than Glens Falls. Thank you for your time.
I'm I'm Paul Spooner, and I have 2 properties on Main Street. I'm fairly new to town, but I recently just moved up here full-time. So I came here tonight, I had a concern about what I was gonna be allowed to do with my buildings. After hearing the meeting, I could tell that I'm gonna be able to put some stores in the shoe store, put some apartments in the senior center. So my concerns aren't that great anymore. But after listening to what these guys had to say, I agree with a lot of what they said. I mean, Jim made some good points. They're gonna stop traffic from people from parking on Main Street. I mean, there's not a lot of parking on Main Street. So these are all valid points that should be considered when you guys go ahead with this. The other concern I had, well, the second lady, I didn't catch her name. She's talked about people who own this, and now you're gonna put this burden on them. What about doing something like grandfathering in, work this in rather slowly rather than just drop it on everybody? Because they're right, there's a lot of people that don't have the money to do the rehab that's needed. I mean, there's a lot of old buildings in this town. I love it because of that. I can't wait to get my things going and get those rehabbed and do what I want to do. And I think it'll be great for the town. The other concern I had was on your extensions. Basically, it sounds like it says like after the year, if you guys want to extend, you can just extend and extend and extend into forever. I don't know if I exactly agree with that. And I do believe that you people really are trying to do what's right. You're not out there trying to, put people under, I really, so far in my experience in this town, I've had very good experience with the people here. Some of you know me, most of you don't. And it's, I'm coming out of Massachusetts, and I'm telling you, it's nothing like that down there. I mean, it's just too much crap goes on down there. So it's refreshing for me to come up here, come to the town hall building, speak with Kevin. I know John, I know Brian. I think I spoke with you. The only lady I don't know really is the lady there. So anyway, my concerns are few, but I think there's some really valid points that were brought up here, and it should be considered. And I know this is probably not the time to go through all that, but anyway, I wanted to say that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sure.
Teresa Whalen, 43 Orton Drive. So I believe anyway that the purpose of the moratorium was just to give our town board and planning zoning boards the opportunity to update our zoning codes without further losing any historic buildings on our Main Street. The reason Main Street was chosen is because it really is the area that is at the highest risk. I don't necessarily agree with stopping all commercial real estate. All of these buildings along our Main Street could be used and rehabbed for businesses. And that's what towns that we see and we visit and we choose to vacation do. What we have here in Warrensburg is very special. And we're blessed. We're blessed with natural resources. We're blessed with historic resources. And instead of embracing them and make the most out of them, everybody is so caught up in their own property rights issues. And that's what the Adirondacks, seems to lend itself to. But if we really looked at the bigger picture, investor confidence, and I am in real estate, not full time, but that is what I do to try to make a living. And investor confidence has a lot to do with having proper planning in place. And we've come a long way since we didn't have any planning or zoning back in the early 80s. But obviously, since a lot of our comprehensive plan is not reflected in our current zoning codes, this is something that the town has been wanting to address now for several years. And the purpose of the moratorium is just to give them the opportunity to do it without having to, have another crisis if, say, the Pillars or say the Emerson House, was to get a better offer with another type of inappropriate business for our downtown Main Street area. Based on the size of the building, based on how it looks. And if we're not concerned about this, then we're not really paying attention to what is happening in the world. And that is that, we have a lot of choices and we have a lot of information out there. And what seems to be one of the great opportunities that people see are to purchase historic properties, restore them with grant funding, with tax incentive programs. This has been done all around us. It's nothing new, and it's been done for decades. And we don't have to look far to see good examples. I love my town. I want us to do the right thing. I don't want it to look like every other strip mall, up and down a highway. I want us to, retain our unique character. And just like the mountains and just like the river, we have historic architecture, and let's just give our town boards, our town fathers, the opportunity of protecting them without taking away anyone's rights, with this very temporary moratorium. I do have a question. New retail store commercial development means any construction or other activity for the purpose of establishing a new retail store commercial use. It shall not include maintenance, improvement, renovation, expansion, or demolition of existing structures. So I guess I'm very confused by that statement, because I really thought that the purpose of the moratorium was so that we wouldn't be seeing any more historic buildings demolished while the zoning codes are being evaluated and updated. Am I wrong?
I had nothing to do with writing this, so I will turn over to who asked for this.
I think with the temporary moratorium in place on commercial new box store developments, so people aren't gonna rush out and tear down their homes.
Brian, can you speak up?
People won't rush out and tear down existing buildings, to clear a lot. We just want to have a look at where the best place for these particular stores is. And there'll be a series of meetings, public hearings, and roundtable discussions with our planning and zoning departments, and get this done. So, no, there's nothing to stop anybody from tearing down a house that they own. They're free to do it, or they can start tonight.
Well, then I don't see why anyone would have any problem if they can still tear down the buildings, or why we really even have this in place if that were the case. But honestly, there have been several attempts at this moratorium, and I'm sad to say that they haven't been very good ones. I think what we really want to do is for the short term, the very short term, while our zoning codes get updated, protect the historic resources on Main Street, because they're the ones in jeopardy. I'm not sure that this does that, actually. And I'm not supporting stopping any other businesses from coming into town and rehabbing properties and opening storefronts. That seems silly to me. If that's what this does, then I'm not supporting it either. But anyway, I just wanted a little clarification, and I think there's a lot here, and there's a lot for people to have issue with, and I want you guys to be able to do your job. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address
Can I
this?
get one more bite of the apple?
Hold on, I want first down, and then we'll do round two. Estates. Everybody gets to talk one time, and then we'll go second round.
Claire Bates, this is a complete turn of events. I just want to comment on the summer concerts for a minute. They were absolutely wonderful. We averaged 90 people most every night. And I want to thank you for allowing me to introduce the band. Thank you.
Good evening, Harley Fisk. As you can see, there's a lot of public input here that still needs to be analyzed. And I don't think that it should be up to you five people to be able to tell anybody what they can do with their property. I think this should go to public vote, and let the citizens of Warrensburg decide how they want their town to be run.
Anybody else, first time through? Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak.
please state your name and address for record. Thank you.
My name is Lars Hus Wojcicki, and unfortunately, I am not local to this town. I was born and raised in Lake George, New York. I have resided in Saratoga Springs for the last 23 years. I represent Venatio Construction and others in development. I'm here to talk to you about what I believe to be potential dangers and also a potential opportunity for this town. I've loved this town for a long time. My mother has belonged to the parish across the street for over 20 years. I've seen this town grow, and I've seen the love that the people have that live here. I just want to talk about real numbers and rehabilitation to some of these homes. Well, I understand the historic district is something that everybody wants to protect. In other towns where I've done this, there's a lot of danger to that. As we all know, the last 2 years has brought about significant change to upstate New York. Prices per square foot in residential resale homes in Warren County have gone from an average of $170 a square foot 2 years ago to over $230. To put that into perspective, new construction was $225 a square foot just 24 months ago. The car count through this town is unbelievable. Gentrification is unfortunately something that is going to happen with the thrust that is coming out of downstate New York. The idea on how to properly manage that is, I believe, the core problem for any and all towns that love their town and want to keep together some portion of that. I believe there's an opportunity here as you see the per square foot prices in your town alone rising to over $230 a square foot. There is a second home market that wants to be in this area. The Adirondack Park has seen a surge in residential resale like it's never seen before. I don't believe these people are coming here to ruin the area, but to embrace it and become a part of it. I believe that what you have now with your core commercial zoning district should be as important as saving the commercial homes, the historic homes. I believe that taxable income through viable businesses is a great way forward as well. I understand the moratorium, to my understanding, is 1 year. Is that correct? That's what's being brought forward. And the version I'm hearing is that would put a halt to any and all retail, correct?
That's the way it's written.
Okay. I would just urge, again, as I'm not somebody that lives here, so I can easily be shouted down, there's an unbelievable opportunity here. I represent many developers that are starting to look this way. We've done a lot of development in Glens Falls, starting with 14 Hudson, which was a $53 million project we put in, and I expanded Glens Falls Hospital through that. We moved to the Adirondacks culinary program. A lot of those developers are now starting to look in other directions. I'm here to support commercial business growing in your district. If you look at the cost to save some of these homes, in actuality, many of these homes are uninsulated. Many of these homes have asbestos throughout. If you are to remove those things the correct way, the cost is spectacular. The homes that are owned currently by these people are more than likely, and I am guessing, unaffordable for these people to be able to rehabilitate. There has been homes that have sat on this main street for quite some time. The buyers are not coming because they know the cost is too great. Cost to rehabilitate homes like that, I have done over 35 in the last 24 months, is well over $300 a square foot. I just think, in my opinion, to try and save some of them isn't going to work. I do agree that there's probably a way to expand your historic district, but I think you have to find room for commercial development. I plan on bringing an opportunity to this town within the next 3 to 4 months, and we'll talk about that when that opportunity presents itself, but there will be many more opportunities that will be coming this way in the coming 12 months. To put a moratorium for 1 year, I believe, would be a big miss. That's all, thanks.
Anybody else wish to talk to us? Please.
Sorry.
It's going up and down tonight.
Joyce Reed. I just have a couple questions.
First, you say the historic district, both sides of Main Street, contiguous. I want clarification on that. Does it mean from the Plank Bridge all the way to Third Avenue, every single building on Main Street?
Mr. Larkin, you guys hold it.
The attorneys requested a point A to point B
Okay, but,
to include all of the buildings that are of significant historic value. Some may not even be on the registry at this time. That's why the Plank Bridge to Third Street was chosen, because it includes buildings that could potentially choose to be on that registry. So it does not, Joyce, include every building up and down Main Street.
so how does the public know which building is included and which isn't? Because according to this, it says all buildings on Main Street, from the North Plank Bridge to Third Street, which would include all of Jack Tony's stores, all of Baron Dingman, John Alexander's funeral home, the pizza place. I mean, we need clarification as to which buildings you're talking about. We have somebody who's interested in doing a business now, and if you put a moratorium on him, he started in progress, and as I understand this, it ceases, whether it's in progress or not, correct? If the moratorium passes, anything that's in progress now, even if it's been approved, ceases, correct?
Right, you would need to have all approvals and actual construction.
Okay.
Please, please.
Okay, just, okay. So that's a yes, and we don't know what buildings are included yet. But you've put this out to the people. But we don't know exactly what building, what property, 3760 Main, 3913 Main, 3903 Main, 3834 Main. We don't have a map. Yes or no?
The map exists. You provided us with a very nice list of the Main Street buildings that are on the historic register.
But you say all of Main Street, both sides in here.
Because the area encompasses the contiguous resources located along.
Excuse me, Linda, we have, Joyce has the floor.
It says that for the purpose, and that the area encompasses contiguous resources located among, as well as other properties that may be appropriate for expansion of the historic district. So that's what I'm asking. We need to know what building, correct? I mean, we should know what buildings are included, correct? But you can't give that to us yet. Okay, I just asked him the question.
Joyce, I appreciate the question. I
Okay,
think it's appropriate.
okay,
And I'd be more than happy to get an answer for you for the public hearing.
okay,
And I'll give it to you ahead of time so that you can share it with everybody.
okay, that's great. The next question I have is, it says, new retail store commercial development. So, is that a retail store that is, it says personal use household? So does that include breweries? Does it include restaurants, bars? Or are they excluded? Do you consider them commercial use? Or are they excluded?
I would defer to the attorney for that answer.
If someone was interested in putting a brewery on Main Street,
It says selling goods and merchandise to the public for personal and household use.
so would that be out or in?
What's the intention of this on board?
Okay, I just
Anybody else wish to address this tonight?
Can I see if I buy our property before this goes into effect?
Is anybody? Okay, John.
Folks, I got, statement brief, please. Let me be upfront about,
Name
John Alexander, Warrensburg. Let me be upfront about one fact. at this onset. I'm a property owner on Main Street, a very segment of town now targeted by these erroneous proposed regulations on commerce. Yes, this proposal would affect me and my business. That disclosure aside, I have serious and legitimate concerns about what can only be described as a knee-jerk overreaction to the demolition on Lower Main Street. It baffles me that one property owner exercising his property rights at a single parcel can cause such a disappropriate response from backers of these regulations. I urge each of you to take a walk down Main Street and count the help wanted signs. They're on every corner and in the windows of significant numbers of businesses. National staffing crisis, such as the one now present in the U.S., it hits small communities such as Warrensburg inordinately hard. This town's real strength is its location. So 6 miles from Lake George Village, 30 minutes from Saratoga Springs, less than an hour from International Airport. And it's a jumping off point to some of the finest outdoor recreational opportunities in the continental U.S. Warrensburg has potential for economic growth. And in fact, we've seen in the past few years, numerous small business owners took the risk and opened up shops along Main Street. And in response, members of this board want to shutter that same street to business, all in pursuit of some romantic aesthetic ideal that neither well-defined nor rooted in reality. Oscar Smokehouse, Jacobson Tony, Colonial Arms, old wooden structures find a way of burning to the ground. From those ashes grew modern, efficient buildings that enhanced Warrensburg economy. This proposal seeks to undermine the very economic freedom that allowed those business owners to rebuild bigger and better. The owners of Crystal Dodge are now sinking millions into a new development. This project alone will enhance the town's economy and bolster local government's coffers in the process. It's likely wouldn't be possible under this proposal. Anyone who has followed this board knows I'm a believer in zoning and planning. Mine is not a critique of land use regulations at large. When members of this board in an election year move on limitations on commerce, such as I urge, we've lost our focus. These regulations are proposed throughout an era of boundaries which are downright arbitrary. They're an assault on property rights that will stifle future economic growth. They only exist because the backers failed to enact spot zoning in Warrensburg, which has been labeled New York State for decades. You want to have a debate about future of Main Street, including the preservation of some historic buildings? Let's do that. But it must be done with some objective rule set without political pretext. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else wish to address the board tonight? Please do come up, state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Janet Holman. I first had a question for you, just procedurally. If this were to go to a public hearing, would you have to do it based on this, or would edits to this be possible?
Before a local law can be adopted, they have to schedule a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to get public comment. If the town board, after that public comment, wants to make certain small changes, they can make them and adopt it at that point. If the changes are significant, there's no specific definition, you sort of use judgment on that. And if you think you're close, then you schedule another public hearing with revisions that make those maybe significant changes. So that's the purpose of the public hearing, is to take comments, like Joyce's comments, that if there's issues by the town board, if they think that things aren't clarified, they can clarify things. And that fact, they can clarify them before they can have clarification ready for that meeting if they want. But so changes can be made.
Okay. I'm not super wild. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not really super wild about either the extension or the termination thing. Is really a little unclear as far as it just says at the discretion of the town board. I don't think that it would be appropriate for some sort of moratorium to be able to be extended or just removed without something at least as thorough as having a public hearing. And it doesn't really say that here, so if you go forward with this, you need to clarify that.
I can answer part of that. If they're going to extend it, they have to go through the exact same process. They have to have a local law, which has to have scheduled public hearings, and then they would adopt it. So it's the same exact process if they were to extend the moratorium. To end it, it either ends based on the time period, the year is up, or they affirmatively decide to end it sooner, and that doesn't require a public hearing. It will be done at a public meeting, but it doesn't require a public hearing.
Okay. All right, then generally speaking, I just want to make a couple remarks. First, I guess I would like to point out that there are a lot of things that everybody here agrees on. First, everybody here loves this town and is trying to do what they think is best for this town, which is great. I mean, honestly, I know I'm supposed to talk to you, but you should all be really proud of yourselves. I mean, I'm very pleased to see that everybody cares. I think there's another thing that most people who have looked at the zoning laws agree with, I think with the inclusion of the board, is that there are holes in it, in our zoning regulations. They're not complete. They need edits. In fact, I think was something that has been talked about for many years and has never been done. Third, and some of you are going to disagree with me, but hear me out. I'm a property owner in this town. It's a very old building, not on Main Street. Property owners don't have carte blanche. Now, there are limits to what we can do with our properties. And here's why I know that. I don't think any of you want a porn shop next to your house. I don't think anybody here would feel comfortable if their neighbor were to dig a 20-foot pit on their property line and undermine their home. So we all accept living in this town that we have some restrictions to our properties. That includes businesses, that includes homes. I think it is perfectly realistic that our town should fix our zoning laws. Now, whether we put a moratorium right now on Main Street until that's done or not, it seems like there was one purpose for that, and that was to keep one particular development from happening. And I will tell you, having looked at the drawings provided by the developer, they're not ready. There are problems with what they're planning that is going to affect their neighbors and all of us too. Now, some of those hopefully will get figured out during the planning process. Some of them potentially would come up during the county building inspection. But there are some that might not come up with either. And I don't want any of the surrounding properties to be damaged. I don't want something built that is dangerous for people in the town. And I would hope that whatever, if nothing is passed for a moratorium in town, that's fine. If something is, it shouldn't affect anybody's ability to start a business in town. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address?
Linda Marcella, from the beginning, I understood that the purpose of this was just to slow things down, to create a pause. I think we were all blown away when a beautiful historic building that we all have grown up driving by disappeared or was going to disappear. So I think that was the purpose of it, was just to say, wait a minute, what's happening here? We all know that, and we've talked about it, when I was on the board for the last, let's see, what would it be, 9 years, that we needed to do some overhaul of the zoning. Well, for whatever reason, we haven't done it. So now certainly is the time. But I think it became very obvious when just overnight, something that's been here a couple hundred years is gone, that maybe the face of Warrensburg that we've all come to love, and maybe in my case, move away and then come back to because of it, think that we should stop and work together and define what we want Warrensburg to be. Those of you who've traveled down onto northern New Jersey, you go for miles and miles and miles and miles, and all you see is glass and aluminum and sidewalks. There's no character there. There's no charm there. And I don't want to see that disappear in Warrensburg. So maybe the moratorium isn't the way to do it, but then my question is, how do we come together to work, to come up with some solutions and some ideas? And in the beginning, I said we needed to find some money for these people who had buildings that they couldn't afford to maintain or repair. So that's my question, is how do we do this? And how do we define what we want Warrensburg to be? Those of us who have our children who've already grown, your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren. And I remind you that what we're doing today is tomorrow's history.
Anybody else? Everybody spoke? Okay,
Could I just ask one fast one? I keep hearing, whoops, Susan Hull, 52 River Street. I keep hearing the word big box stores. I think there's a disconnect. Aren't we talking about chain stores? There's no big box store going in on Main Street. We're talking Walmart, right, and Target. Aren't the stores we've got on Main Street just chain stores? Isn't that what, I'll say the word, Dollar General is? It's not a big box store. You guys are sounding like we're getting a super Walmart in there. But can you tell me what you mean by box store? As opposed to a chain store like Stewart's?
A big, ugly, corporate-owned structure like that just sells Chinese-made junk located right between that church. It's just a lot of people found it distasteful, you know?
Well, I think we know why some people found it distasteful, but I don't know if anybody's been in a Dollar General. I don't think it's all cheap stuff from China, but they have just as much right to be on Main Street as Stewart's and Cumbies and anybody else. That's all.
Who wants to speak for a second time?
Again, I'm Sharon Tynick with Dunkin' Java down on Main Street. I don't know, but I think from what I've seen, I'm probably the newest business owner in town starting something up. And I started it up because I like the Warrensburg Main Street area, that it's quaint, which ties right into the type of shop I wanted to offer to residents here. Contrary to what John said, if this was more of a big commercial district of more modern type of things, I wouldn't have started the shop. And because that's not what I'm looking for. I want to be part of a, kind of artisty, community where people do stop in Warrensburg and say, you need to go to this place in Warrensburg. So I'm looking for more Main Street quaint than, Las Vegas Strip thing going on. But I want to clarify too, people talked about these buildings not being desired, and I know I wrote a letter to the town board, which you guys saw, and given more time than 3 seconds for the gentleman that was making offers for the pillars and how much it costs, but I wanted to clarify, I offered to buy the building that was torn down back in May, offered to buy out the contract that he said he had on the contract or on the building at that time, because he wasn't sure they were going to get financing. And even before the meeting started, I went back and left the business card again and said, I'm still interested in this building. As even in addition to the shop I had as a place for an artist co-op, which I thought would be a cute area for it. So there's misinformation floating around about whether people want these buildings and or can do something with them, that would maintain part of that historic look and charm of the town. And the other thing to consider besides income for the community is the type of ambiance that new business owners want. They are small, quaint businesses, and we all share and send people to each other's businesses. Nobody's gonna come to me and ask, do you know where there's a Dollar General? Because you can find those. So I think that's something to keep in mind. You may gain revenue, and probably more revenue from a Dollar General for the town, but you lose that in tourism and the intrigue of a interesting, different place to shop. And that's what I've heard from everyone who's come through since we opened in July was, oh, this town needed something like this. And I think the town needs more of that charm. And so that's what the emphasis is for me. And I am all for planned growth in any community. And so I do think the moratorium as written for a 1 year, let's think about it, is a really good idea. Stopping and think about it and having a plan is always probably the first approach to success, I think, whether it's for a business or a town. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board?
Jim Howe, I want to go back to where I started in 1984. I'd like to say, though, that this wonderful house that got tore down and sat there for over 10 years with a for sale sign out there is on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and nobody bought it. I had a conversation in this building 4 years ago with Steve Parisi, myself, and Gary Cooper about the pillars and what was going to happen to that wonderful thing next door. And Mr. Parisi told me that somebody somewhere somebody would buy that building. I said, who? Well, somebody. It reminds me of when I go to the firehouse in a 3-foot snowstorm, and there's guys that wallow through the snow to get the firehouse, come back to the fire and get out of the fire truck and say, somebody needs to shovel out in front of the door. Will you tell me who this somebody is that's going to buy these places? If this lady wants to buy a place, Faith Bucks is for sale right up there in the corner. Jump in and get your feet wet. I've been in an old building. It's easy to say that somebody is going to buy these buildings. Back in 1987, when this started with taking the parking off Main Street and the green spaces, the people that promoted that also said, well, they're going to put a wooden walk bridge from the Judd Bridge to Osborne Bridge, and they're going to put pavers in the walkway up there between Art Brown's store and the bandstand, and that's going to make people jump out of their cars and shop in Warrensburg. That didn't happen. Then they were sure when they put the historic Mills District in that they were going to get LL Bean, Cabela's, Hillshire Farms, and Orvis. And all these stores were just magically going to appear down on River Street. That was 37 years ago. Are they there now? Absolutely not. And if you hold these people's feet to this fire, I won't be here, but 37 years from now, that mess will be over here, and Faith Buck's house will still be standing up there waiting for somebody to come by it.
Teresa Whalen, little rebuttal for Jim's comments. Our zoning code enforcement officer, so we see what type of guidance people are getting when they come to our town.
Excuse me.
And taxpayer, yes, we're all taxpayers. And I chair Warrensburg Beautification, so that's who I am, and I sell real estate. And I've also had a conversation with my good friend Steve Parisi, and it was a few months before he passed. And we were talking about economic development, and we were talking about these dinosaurs, or whatever you want to refer to our architectural treasures on Main Street and throughout our community. And when I said, well, Steve, we really need to find investors, find people that want to rehab our properties. We know that they're out there. And he said, I have them. But the problem is there's no investor confidence. That's what we're trying to do. I don't know why anyone can't understand that. We're trying to instill investor confidence. If you wanted to buy something and invest money into it, wouldn't you want to think that the properties on either side of you or across the street were going to remain, similar? Or would you just think that anything could happen, like Janet referred to, having a pornography store or whatever it could be. The fact is that proper planning is what makes towns successful. And we have been very fortunate to have a high traffic count, to be in a great location, to have all the resources that we have. And I've been here for over 35 years, and yes, we could have done a lot more. We could have come so much further if we had the support of those who had been in charge. And and when it came to the Main Street projects, if we had put additional money into things, we could have had a printed pavement. We could have had, unified vintage lighting and all sorts of wonderful things up and down our Main Street. There wasn't the vision, there wasn't the attention then. I want to think that there is now. Those things do make a difference. We can go to many communities in our area where they have made a difference. We have people that want to invest in our community, like Bell and others. And, the question mark is, what are we investing in? Is it going to be here tomorrow? I'm not even looking at this from an emotional standpoint. I'm looking at this purely from an economic development standpoint. So I hope that some people understand where I'm coming from, and I do love my town.
Anybody else tonight?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask you to speak one more time, and I wanted to celebrate and reiterate the points of both Mr. Alexander and Mr. Hall, who I think made very valid points. While I understand small business and those that moved in July are excited about the small town prospects that you see scattered throughout the Adirondack Mountain towns and keeping the integrity of that. It's a very simple thing. We did it in Saratoga Springs, architectural review, very easy to do. You can set out a design, does not need a year moratorium to do so. You don't have to have big gaudy lights. You can outline certain things that aren't. But again, I need to reiterate that more than ever in the last 24 months, this town sits on an opportunity like it's never seen before. The thrust moving with remote working capabilities is unlike anything that's ever happened before. The strength of this town is in its location. I completely agree with Mr. Alexander on that. I think proper growth and the right way to do it is also something. So I don't think it's something that should tear this town apart at the seams. However, I think a one-year moratorium would severely hinder the opportunity of this town. I strongly urge those to come out in support of putting down this moratorium, but giving some solutions with architectural review for future buildings going onto Main Street. I don't think it has to be as crazy as you're saying, where it's going to be Dollar Generals and Targets in one big strip mall. It can be done in a cute, quaint way, which is what you fell in love with this town. But townspeople also need taxpayer income. They need taxable income. They need viable businesses. This town sits right off 87. It's an artery, and it always has been. You can go up and down the numbers, commercially and residentially. The numbers sit off 87, and every town that's grown has been off of that. This is a 3-lane down to 2-lane by you, no toll highway. Gateway to the Adirondacks, outdoor activities, as touched on by Mr. Alexander. This town has an opportunity, unlike other towns that surround the Adirondack Park, because of its proximity to Interstate 87. I think there's a way for good growth, but I think to turn your back on growth now, when the opportunity is so close and such a great opportunity, I think is a huge mistake. So I strongly come out support for those to shut down that moratorium and move forward with some growth while the opportunity presents itself.
Jack Tony Warrensburg. I just want to ask you one question. Why we don't have any housing growth in Warrensburg? Can you guys tell me why? You live here in Warrensburg. Why don't we have a housing development going on? You're on the town board. Nobody knows?
School taxes, probably.
No school tax. We're in a hamlet. The APA has shut us off. I put a development over in Jenny Jill, I put the Cloverleaf in, I put the Merrill McGee development in with a couple of partners. There's no more growth in Warrensburg. You gotta, instead of here fighting about old house, you gotta extend the hamlet. You got another big problem, churches. The growth in churches is bad. You got 7, 8 big churches in town. You're going to want to have empty churches eventually. We got problems besides stopping growth in Warrensburg for a year. Think about this stuff. We got more problem than saving old buildings and that's stopping growth. We have a lot to do here. We're wasting our time. Thank you.
No, I just want to say, I hear people say, well, it's only a year. But if you look what has happened to the country in less than 6 months, we could be ruined in a year. So I think putting a hold on growth in Warrensburg would be very detrimental.
Okay, I just remind everybody that there will be a public hearing in the future if we move forward with this moratorium or the local law tonight. And then we certainly will schedule a public hearing, and it will be a standalone public hearing sometime. So do we have to vote to go ahead with this?
You guys will decide on it tonight, and then there's a public hearing?
No, if the town board wants to move forward, the next action is for the town board to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing concerning this proposed local law.
So what does the board want to do?
I think it's appropriate to put the resolution in place and hear the public hearing. Because no decision's going to be made until the public hearing has been heard.
So you're introducing a motion?
I am.
Do we have a second?
We talked about the 27th. Is that appropriate to everybody?
It's 2 weeks from tonight. That work?
Not the Indian. What?
27.
We're going to have a public hearing.
So you're making that motion?
Yes, I am.
We have a second?
It's October 27th. Is an attorney available that night, Bob?
We'll make sure someone's here.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second? Okay, well, let's do a voice vote.
Councilperson Alexander.
No.
Councilperson Round.
Yes.
Supervisor Garrity.
No.
Councilperson Winslow.
Yes.
Councilperson Mark.
Yes.
Okay, so public hearing will be scheduled for October 27th at 7 p.m. I ask everybody who's present tonight, please come again on that night and make your views known. Thank you. Yeah, we have more on the agenda, so I have to finish our agenda.
Is there not, is there another place?
You'll get a chance to talk to Dan unless it's something
I
that
think she's about to ask if there's another.
I'm just asking, is there a better place so that other people can get in for a public hearing?
I know the school isn't letting anybody in. We can see if we can find a bigger place to have.
You're all welcome at the parlor. It's not air conditioning.
Do they get a vote too?
Pleasure.
The other thing is, will we have the designated properties? Will we have the designated properties and the defined retail commercial use by the meeting so that the public has that information before the meeing?
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
If we do move that to a different location, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
I will check with the school. They have the auditorium. They haven't been able to use it yet because of COVID. If we did go to school, everybody's required to wear a mask. Okay, next, moving on with our agenda tonight, we need a resolution requesting enter in a new contract with Countryside Veterinary Medical Group for the year 2022 to cover dog control services.
So moved, Kevin.
Motion by John, second by Donnie. Any discussions? Voice vote?
Councilperson Alexander?
Yes.
Rounds?
Yes.
Supervisor Garrett?
Yes.
Councilperson Weazel?
Yes.
Thank
Okay, we have several budget modifications tonight. Most of them are to adjust the bills and pay for cost of a new tractor, and rest of them are regular expenditures for the year. So motion to approve the budget modifications. You all have a copy in your package. Motion by Donnie, second by John to approve the budget modifications. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The bills on warrant number 10. The total claims for tonight are $181,185.88. Motion to approve the warrants.
So moved, Kevin.
Motion by John, second by Brian to pay the warrants in the amount of $181,185.88. Now I'll take comments from the public on anything else. Please come up and address your name for the record.
Matthew Kennedy, I would just like to thank John Alexander for getting the lights fixed down on Milton Avenue. Because they really look great.
I'm working on it. It's, there's been a lot of, they're getting to it. Some of them they aren't getting to it very, very fast, but they took care of it, man.
Yeah, they really look good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing no other discussions tonight, I'll ask for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Where?